Welcome to the only Danish podcast about pro wrestling. This episode will take you on a journey, maybe someone say an adventure. But before we start with the adventure, I would like to give you a little bit of tease of the guest on this episode. It's a former Big Japan Pro Wrestling champion. And we also had this tagline in the podcast. As you know, every wrestler has a story to tell. So, Endakara, are you ready to tell yours?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It depends where we start to begin, or to be honest with you, but yeah, let's see how this goes.
Yeah, I think it'll go very good because I think you have an interesting story to tell. So, Enda, could you take our listeners and viewers all the way back and tell them a little bit about your background?
Well, yeah, my background. I usually, personally, I don't really look back too much and smell the roses, which probably is why I am where I am today. But if we're gonna go back, I even remember the date and everything. But I started professional wrestling in October 31st, 2016. But before that, I had been watching since I was 8 years old, and I always knew in the back of my mind that I was going to do it and pursue it eventually, some way, somehow in the future. But over in Sweden, as everybody would probably know, the scene is not that big. But it was in the back of my head for quite some time, let's say that. Um, but yeah, once I started, I simply dedicated my life to it. It was one of those moment of clarities kind of thing before where I was like, all right, if this thing here doesn't work out, I'm just gonna do whatever makes me happy. And at the time, wrestling was still something that made me happy. So, and also it was an escape from reality, right? So from there, I started, and the moment I stepped in the ring for the first time, I dedicated my life to it, and ever since that day, haven't really looked back.
No, I can totally understand that. But Enda, who inspired you? If you everyone says, "Well, I was inspired by Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, and so on." Who from way back then was your inspiration for going into wrestling?
From before I was a wrestler, I would say it was Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Randy Orton, and Jeff Hardy. But
Oh,
once I started, and then I would say it was Punk, it was Prince Devitt, especially, and so on. Especially people from the Japanese scene. So I will just end up speaking for a long time about every single name if I have to mention every single one. So but yeah, those are like the key people since I started wrestling. Prince Devitt, I would say, definitely number one there.
I I can understand that. But Enda, feel free to talk as long as you want. Then we'll just split this episode up in two parts if it takes way too long.
Good to know.
So don't you worry about that. The microphone is open all night if we need that long time.
That's
So
a dangerous
yeah,
thing to say to me.
yeah. I know, but I feel it's very important for me that you feel
Mm.
comfortable, and then you just talk all the time and tell our listeners everything you want about pro wrestling and you as a wrestler. So don't you worry about that. But but if you look at the way your inspiration and so on, and the first step you talked about not looking back. So when did it all start? How did you find where to train wrestling in Sweden?
Well, there's a saying that goes, if there's a will, there's a way. So at the time, I knew I wanted to do it. So obviously, I do my research, right? And even if it weren't a scene, if there was no scene here in Sweden, I would still find a way to do it, right? But fortunately, there was, and it's still ongoing, right? But yeah, I made my research, and I knew, all right, okay, this is the company I'm gonna contact once I know, like for sure, that I'm gonna start. And that's exactly what happened, right? And that was Stockholm Wrestling uh, at the time. Yeah, and still, yeah, again, still ongoing.
So that you can characterize that as your home ground, Stockholm wrestling,
I mean,
or is it
it's such
Japan?
a it's such a touchy subject because
Yeah,
Ender Kara
yeah.
hasn't really Ender Kara has never wrestled in Stockholm Wrestling before.
No.
So I would say like because there came a time eventually, fast forward, right, where I left Sweden in order to pursue wrestling and in order to do it as much as I wanted to with like-minded people, and then I went to the UK and I lived
Oh.
in the Birmingham area, and I was training with a place I shall not name due to speaking out, because I don't want to give them the platform. And Kentucky Pro, I trained with. But so I would say like my home companies would be over there. But if we're counting literally from when I started, I would say yeah, Stockholm Wrestling is obviously the choice there.
Interesting, interesting. So, how was the training? Because I've tried a few times, been in the ring, and it hurts a lot, even
Mm.
though for an old man like me. So, how did the training shape you as a pro wrestler?
The training, oh man, yeah. I mean, it was obviously intense, but I had a pretty good idea of what I got myself into. And with my background in Taekwondo and martial arts in general, I already had a somewhat of a discipline. So I had a background to work with during the trainings, finding my ways to move around in the ring, etc. And jiu-jitsu as well, kickboxing, you name it. And having a discipline when you start usually makes things easier because you have an idea of timing and um like having a move set or like an arsenal. Well, while a lot of people, sadly, they just start to get fit, right? But it's such a small thing over here in the Nordics where this is a profession where, like, if you're gonna go and train wrestling, you almost have to be a fan, almost, because it's so small here, right? You have to not,
Yeah.
you have to have an idea of what you're getting yourself into because it's not that fun sometimes, and it hurts. It's gonna take a big toll on your body, and we all have the bump card. Also, the business itself is not exactly like the most pleasant business, but like you learn on the way through repetitions, obviously. So it will take a lot of damage onto your body in order to get somewhere. If you're starting from scratch, that is.
Yeah. So, how did you cope? Now you're talking about the damage with your body and so on. How did you cope, your mindset to cope with that pain in some ways? Because you have to go through a lot of pain before reaching a certain point as a pro wrestler.
Right. I mean, it's different for everybody else, but for my case, and it might sound really sad and really cringy, maybe, but like I was driven by the pain.
Mm.
I liked the pain. I still like the pain. I love the pain. It's what drives me, what motivates me, is what gets me up on my feet, right? So for me, that was my escape from reality. Because if we're gonna go into like a more personal, like if you're gonna peel the curtain a bit and check my personal side, I didn't exactly have the best childhood, right? So this was my escape. But then it came a time where my escape was toxic as well, which is why I left the country to begin with, because I knew I was going to do this no matter what, right? Because this is my plan A. I don't have a plan B. So this is it,
Mm.
you know? So that's how I saw it. So in terms of the pain, like that's what drove me. That's what got me going. And yeah, obviously not the best, like for everybody, but I made it work. I already knew from before what I got myself into. I even got warned by the social media page that I contacted in order to start training. They're like, "Oh, right?" And I was like, "Don't worry about it. Like, I know what I'm getting myself into." So for me, I was aware. Let's say that.
So, if I understand it correctly, and you build up this kind of mindset that pain is your friend.
Yeah, pretty much.
Ah, interesting, interesting. Because yeah, I
I
can.
mean, look, I have this quote I usually ask people. I'm asking them, are you like, are you just breathing or are you living? And
Hmm.
I'm the type of guy who, like, everyone's here, right? But I don't like this. I like this, right? So that's how I view it. That's because nothing makes you feel more alive than being in there and telling your story in front of the audience with your body, with your movement, with your emotions. Because I always picture myself as an artist. I'm painting the canvas, the ring canvas. I'm painting it,
Oh, yeah.
my body. I'm telling the story to the audience that is there, and I want them to feel it. I want to hook them into the story and, you know, pull them
Uh,
in there. Let's see, like, come in here, come to my world, and let's again. That's why everybody says like it's totally different live, and it is. So that's the way this is the way I see it. I see myself as an artist, and yeah, I'm telling stories, and I have you invested in the story. That is my purpose. That's my goal. So yeah.
and I think, and that's every wrestler's goal to what can you say, enchant the audience in some ways with your type of wrestling, being a wrestler, telling. I think that for me, wrestling is a storytelling with your body.
Mm,
So if you cannot hook someone or the fans with the way you want to tell the story in the ring with your body, or paint the painting on the canvas,
mm.
then maybe you can say you have failed.
Also, for me, it's about being authentic as well.
Yeah,
Because if you're not authentic, people will, they can tell. People can tell.
yeah,
At least from my experience. So yeah, it's about and get them going, like get them, hook them in, and pull them into the story, have them invested, emotionally invested. So that is, you don't even need to do a bunch of moves in order to do so. In order to do so, you know what I mean. It can be from speaking, it can be from emotion, like facial expressions, you name it.
yeah. Because actually, wrestling can sometimes be very, very simple.
Mm,
You can even do just one move in a whole match if you
yeah.
make that one move matter.
I'm all about less is more. Let's
Yeah,
say that.
yeah.
I'm all about
Exactly.
that.
But Enda, we have talked a little bit. You have talked about your background, but one thing that's very interesting for me, and also I think for the listeners, is the character Enda Kara.
Right.
Character building for you. How did you put it together piece by piece to where you are now today?
This is such a big subject.
Yeah, but we have a lot of time, so take your time.
That's all I hear. Well, first of all, I've kind of found myself about, I would say, almost 150 to 200 matches in, right? Because repetitions are not only done in the training sessions or the training halls. I find the training sessions in front of the live audience as the actual training session where you can try stuff out. So whenever I was competing elsewhere outside of Sweden, I would try a bunch of stuff out. I would try a new entrance song. I would try a new move, a new approach, etc. You know what I mean? It's just trying stuff out, trying to find myself, trying to perfect my craft. So that's what it's all about. And then I was the Turkish assassin, and then I became the Crown Prince, which I am still today in a way. And I'm still a Turkish assassin, obviously. But then from there, I remember I was gonna go to Japan, and I was like, all right, I need to, because again, like I see myself as an artist. So obviously, I've had a lot of sleepless nights. I've been studying matches. I've been studying certain characters. I've been studying certain wrestlers to the point where I'm like, okay, how can I, how do I see this? How could I do anything different, etc. And studying and studying, basically like making it an obsession because again, like there's no plan B. Um, and I remember when I was gonna go to Japan, I was like, all right. I was checking my 20 Google Docs or whatever I had with different ideas, and I was like, okay, what's the strongest thing that I like? What in my heart, right? I was like, what is the most authentic character I could pull off here? And then I was looking back for once at my entire journey, right? And in a way, I saw myself like as a cursed person. I'm like, well, I can't stop. I'm
Mhm.
stuck. Like I could never stop doing this unless I reach my goals. So this is the way I look at the cursed assassin, like the curse itself. The curse is basically like, okay, I have to endure everything that is coming my way in order to reach my goals. And there's no shortcuts, nothing. Like there's a saying where you can take the easy way to success or the difficult way to success. And I know for a fact in all of my heart that I took the difficult way, considering the journey that I've had. Like I've lived in England, I've lived in Germany, I've lived in Japan now as well. And it was all for wrestling. Every single thing, every single repetition outside of Sweden or in Sweden, going to the States, it's all just because I wanted to go to Japan. Because that's, I believe, where my goal is, and that is the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title. So in a way, I was like, okay, so if I'm cursed, there has to be a cure. And in my head, that is my cure, that title, because that title is what got out of my bed. Like I got out of bed because of that title for the past 8 years or maybe 9 years. Um, so okay, I was like, okay. So what's the strongest thing I can pull out? Well, I kind of still uh, compete as an assassin in a way with all my kicks, my speed, my brutality in the ring, right? My intensity, my facials, my look. I was like, all right, that makes sense. And it's not because I like the video game or whatever. I have that nickname because I was given that nickname from fans and like from my own mind, right? It's not because I was a fan of Assassin's Creed or Will Ospreay, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And then I was like, okay, well, I am Turkish, so I was like, okay, let's scratch that, because I'm also born and raised in Stockholm, as people already know, and I've already established I'm basically a cursed individual. So I was like, all right, cursed assassin it is, and I said, okay, how do I make this more of a connection with the crowd? Like, how do I make it clear that it's a cursed assassin? Then I was like, all right, I have the eye. And the moment I step onto Japan, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna use this character here because for as long as I remember, I tried to pull this character off in Denmark. I tried to pull this character off in Germany, but it got shot down every single time. And I was like, all right, I guess it's not just meant to be. And then eventually I was invited over to Japan, and that was like obviously like again the biggest goal of ever of mine since even before wrestling, going to Japan. And then I was like, all right, I gotta pull, like I gotta put my cards on the table. I have to pull this off here the best way possible. And then I knew like, okay, the Cursed Assassin, it has to be here. It has to begin here. And ever since my first match in Japan, I've been the Cursed Assassin. So I established that character over there, and now I'm bringing that character back to Europe. So I don't really know where I'm going with this. I'm just talking,
No,
right?
no, but I think it's actually, for me, it's very interesting to see how every wrestler work with character building
Mm,
because it's a different way that you work. Someone is like finding inspiration within themselves and another person, wrestler, and someone like you really dwells into every aspect of building a
mm,
character, trying different angle, going, well, I'm going to a little bit in that direction. Well, it
mm,
doesn't work. Then I have to take a detour in that direction and so on.
uh,
So it's interesting to get into the mind of a wrestler and understand what they're thinking about their character. Someone
mm.
has a deep meaning like you, and someone has a very more superficial.
Oh yeah.
I
My
mean,
character has so much lore.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I have lore. Let's say that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
Basically,
maybe that's for another episode. We can go into the lore of the
that's
character.
yeah. It's a long one. It's a
Right.
long one
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
literally every single thing that I went through, mentally, physically, and everything, over the 8 year period since I started, it has all led to this, right? And
Mm,
basically, I was like, okay, titles are potential cures, because look, I don't know when I'm done with this, right? So
no.
every single title in every company that I ever go to, all right, their title that are in my weight class, and it's possible for me to, compete for. Those are potential cures. So that's why when I went to Big Japan, I was like, okay, that junior heavyweight title, this is my weight class. I said, all right, that's a potential cure right there. Basically what I mean with that is if I were to win it, let's find out, okay, do I feel good enough to quit wrestling, not retire, quit, or do I continue? And now I'm at the point where, okay, um, I'm closer than I ever been to any of like all of my goals. And like now people might think like, oh, what if you just have a singles match with somebody and it's not for a title? What's the purpose of competing in that match if it's not for, potential cure? And in a way, again, you got to keep in mind, like you literally never know who's watching you, right? Maybe that singles match can lead somewhere else. Maybe someone will see that match and they're like, hey, let's bring Kara here. And then from there, that will lead to something else and etc. So it's like it's all connected. It's all a puzzle, and everyone's puzzle is different. And at the end of the day, like I know for a fact, preparation means opportunity. So this is how I see it. Like anything can lead to, it's all connected.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
what I'm trying to say.
Interesting,
Yeah.
interesting. And but now we're, as you warned me a little bit earlier on in this interview, went in a lot of different direction. I want to take
Yeah.
the direction of your wrestling career. If we take
Please.
it all the way back to your first match,
Ugh.
yeah. Oh,
First match.
yeah. First, maybe I've not
The
find the
first
correct.
match I was not
Yeah.
ready for because I was
Okay.
3 months in. I remember that,
Oh.
and I was not ready. I didn't. I kind of wanted, but also didn't want to start from. I really thought it was too early. But again, the scene is so small here, so you gotta take the chance when you have it. We're all opportunists, right? And it's all like this business is all about grabbing the opportunity when it's there because it might not come back. So in a way, it led to more, obviously. So I'm glad I took it, but I know for a fact I wasn't ready. But yeah, again, as for like my first matches ended kata, I don't even remember where and when that was, to be honest with you.
But I think the way you have talked about your career and so on, I think the more important thing we will come to in a little bit, we have the two steps like the Danish connection and the
Mhm.
Japanese connection, because I think that's two quite important steps in your
Right,
career. So
100%. Mm.
yeah, 100%. And I think maybe there lies the answers to a lot of the other questions that I sent to you
Mm.
before this interview. So, and if you do not mind, let's jump right into the Danish connection
Mm.
first.
Oh man, again, like I'm so bad with looking back at things because I always strive to move, like have my eyes forward and move forward because
Yeah.
like I'm not where I want to be right now. But as far as the Danish scene, I remember I started off in CCW, or no, actually no, it's DPW, right? Because I was attending the Fake or Break like training camps 2 years in a row, where the coaches were Zach Gibson and Screwface Ahmed from the UK. And yeah, that was my first foot in the Danish scene in a way, because over there also to this day, people who attended those training camps are still around and they're still competing at a very high level in Denmark, right? Uh, so yeah, that's how I first started, and then from there, I started off with TPW, and then from there that led to CCW, and from CCW they kind of at the time cooperated with DPW, and then eventually I believe I pretty late got into body slam pro wrestling, and the reason to why I never did before was because politics. you know, uh, people
Yeah.
were asking, like the wrestlers within Body Slam and management within Body Slam would ask certain Swedish wrestlers about me, uh, but they didn't have that much of a liking to me, so they were like, "Ah, no, don't worry about that guy," right? But then eventually, I competed in UK and I believe in Germany as well, to the point where the Body Slam management were like, "What's the deal? He's going everywhere. Why are we listening to these guys? He's obviously proving himself. He's proving his worth. He's competing here and there. Like it's pretty high up on the cards as well." And they're like, "Hey, let's give this guy a shot." And I was invited over for the Scandinavians, I think,
Yeah.
and that was my debut in Body Slam. And ever since that day, they're like, "Hey, they were just talking shit. You are the real
Exactly.
deal. You are a nice person. Like you are very much a guy we can work with. So hey, you wanna come back, kind of thing, you know. So it was one of those things. And again, it's one of those things again where you just continue doing your thing and everything just falls into place.
Exactly. And one thing, you're spot on that thing, because a lot of people um, listens to what everyone else says about a person
Mm,
instead of making up their own mind about one. And
mm.
that's important here, because in wrestling, let the results and let the character work speak for itself, and not if anyone else likes you or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm all about that. Action speaks louder than words. And like I knew
Exactly.
for a fact, like my resume spoke for itself. The opportunities I earned spoke for itself, and to the point where people ask questions. They're like, "Is he really that kind of guy?" And then they're like, "Hey, let's give this guy a shot, and let's actually ask him and not someone else. You know, ask the person we're thinking about bringing in." And then they found out, "Hey, you can work with this guy," and it
And
turned out.
Dakara is actually a good wrestler, and he can go in the ring. And why
He
should we
actually
listen?
wants to do business, you know what I
Yeah, yeah,
mean? He actually wants to, be an asset to your product kind of thing,
yeah.
right?
And sometimes, and actually, when someone is speaking bad about another person, it's sometimes reflects a lot of jealousy in some ways.
Yeah, I usually say people who speak badly about someone are people who are unhappy with themselves. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
If
So that again, also like waste of energy. I'm still gonna do me, right? At the end of the day, I'm the cursed assassin. I can't fucking stop. You know, I'm
no,
still gonna do my thing. I'm gonna reach every single goal that I ever put for myself because I know I'm not gonna stop and I know what it takes and I know like not only do I have the connections now, but I know I have the grit, I have the dedication, and I have the obsession, which is super important because what separates people from being like on top and from people who are just good is mindset. It's all mindset, really.
exactly. But Enda, you
Mm,
have wrestled a lot in Body Slam, and Body Slam have a huge show coming up next year in Poolen, out
right.
on Amager.
February one?
Yeah, it's in February, I think,
Right.
8th of February. And then
Yes.
you've just wrestled at Nordic Elite Wrestling,
Mm.
Amager BU. How was that experience?
Well, I didn't expect my opponent to come in a cast or like a moon boot, but he got the job done. Respect to him. But yeah, I mean, it was good to finally come back because I had spent so much time in Japan because I had gone from Sweden, Japan, Sweden, Japan, Sweden, Japan about 4 times in a row, and I never really, I kind of missed the European crowds, so it was good to be around and especially at their biggest show, I believe that was. To be back in Nordic Elite, which was my second time at Nordic Elite Wrestling ever, which is almost like baffling, right? But it was good to be back, and hopefully I can be back again because at the end of the day, like I am a Nordic Elite professional wrestler, and I'm not talking
Exactly.
about the company itself. I'm talking about in general, right? Because there's levels to this.
Exactly. So if you look at that match, I would like to dwell a little bit into it.
Mm.
Did you think it went the way you wanted it to, or is there something you wanted to do a little bit differently?
Well, I wanted to win,
Yeah,
right? I mean, I lost, so there's that. So no, it didn't go exactly how I wanted. No, because I lost. But it's a three-way. You know what I mean? And also, like in terms of wrestling, anybody can lose at any given moment. And hey, kudos to Das Black. Showed up with a moon boot, still got the job done, retained his title.
exactly. And one thing, and I was actually texting you a little bit about your entrance gear. I was
Mm,
quite impressed with that, because it had a certain glow, and it really standed out if you
yeah,
compared it with the two other wrestlers.
the
So how
white and
did
blue.
you? Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was
Mm,
amazing.
thank you. Yes, those are actually my special match ring gear. So I use those for anniversaries or in memory of somebody or for title matches. So I only use that particular gear for those kind of matches. Other than that, I have another set that looks very similar but different colors.
Mm.
So due to that match being a title match, I brought those.
Interesting, interesting. So, and if we sum up the Danish connection,
Mm.
if you look at the Danish scene now, it's really buzzing and so on. Do you think the future is bright for Danish pro wrestling in
Oh,
general?
hell, absolutely. I truly believe the place to be in Scandinavia is in Denmark. I think Scandinavians really took off over there and started over there. So I truly believe it's only going to get bigger from here, right? Especially with these upcoming events, especially the one in February. I think from there we're just going to go all the way up. And yes, I'm very happy that the Scandinavian scene is growing because there was a time where it wasn't really, and you had to leave in order to pursue wrestling. But yeah, we're at a different time now.
I think there are a lot more eyes and a lot more focus from outside of outside of Scandinavia, on the Scandinavian wrestling scene, Denmark especially, because a lot of interesting things are happening now.
100%, especially the Scandinavian tournament.
Yeah. So, Enda, do you have any last words you want to say, maybe to some Danish wrestlers or promoters or anything before we wrap this Danish connection up?
Well, for them, I would say check your inbox because my current plans have changed regarding Japan. So my stay has been extended, and I already put that out on social media at njpw, by the way. So I would love for them to check their inboxes and let's make some business and put some butts in the seats, I think.
Yeah, and I shared it as well. I always like to help wrestlers.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, reaching maybe some people I know. I know some people in the wrestling world, and for me, if I can help a wrestler get a booking anywhere in the world, I'm just a happy man.
You're
So
a good man. Thank you. We appreciate you.
hopefully, hopefully. But and now we talked a little bit about Denmark, and I think your heart is in Scandinavia, but I think the rest of your heart is in Japan.
I
Or
uh, I don't know. I'd say my whole heart is in Japan, to be honest with you.
okay, sorry,
Yeah, no, no, you're good. You're
sorry.
good. Honestly, I truly believe like Japan's my home. It's what it was the reason to why I started and everything. So, and also like I've really become such a excellent professional wrestler over there, and the experience that I've gained, the Budokan that I competed in, etc. Like it's only I truly believe when I first got to Japan, that's when my career really started. Got some
Welcome back. And
technical difficulties over here.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah, yeah.
I'm not
So, but
exactly a pro with technology nowadays, but
no, but I think StreamYard is actually the easiest way because normally you can just use the link and then everything works fine. So,
right. Are we
so,
good?
but
I hope it doesn't crash again.
no, no, no. We'll see. But that's maybe because it knows that we're coming to the most important part of this interview, the Japanese connection. So, and
Yes.
let's go from the start. How did it all came about this Japanese connection?
Mm, okay, let me think here. Again, not good at looking back. Um,
Uh,
Actually, that match will forever be special to me. I do know. It was at Inner Circle in Germany for WXW. I had a match against Fuminori Abe, and basically we had the match of the night, according to a bunch of people, even management. And that shot earned me another match at the 16 karat night 3 event for the shotgun title in the 4-way against Maggot, Rotation, me, and Ninja Mac.
Oh.
And then from there, I basically had conversations with Abe and Irie who came over, and they asked like, "Hey, would you like to come to Japan?" Right? And at the time, they already knew that was like the biggest goal of mine and everything. So obviously, I said yes. And then the thing is, at the time, COVID was still kind of going on in a way, so the borders were closed. So ever since March of that year, whenever that was, I believe 2022, probably, not quite sure.
Yeah.
But ever since that month, all the way to around or July, I would say, or August, we were talking. We had a translator, we had everything just to sort things out, but the borders were still closed. And then we kind of, in a way, or they kind of gave up on it, but I didn't. And then eventually the borders opened up, and I got back to them. I said, "Hey, let's do this." And then I was brought over in December of that year. So it was a very long process. And then I mentioned this in a different podcast before, but basically my goal was, okay, I'm here now. So my goal is to prove myself worthy to be brought back. And I did. I was brought back. Okay. And then I was like, all right, now I'm going to prove myself worthy to get a title match. I got a title match. I lost. But then I got back to Sweden. I said, okay, now my realistic goal is to be brought back, win the title, which I did. And then I was like, all right, what's the next goal kind of thing. And that was the Best of the Super Juniors 2024, which I ended up not participating in, sadly. I believe that was my other goal, my goal after the title. But yeah, basically throughout that, like, in Japan, you wrestle almost every day. It's not just something you do on the weekends like in Europe. We're talking Monday to Sunday, right? So it's very intense. It's very heavy on your body, especially the ring. It's obviously bigger. It's more stiff, and over here, such a different world. It's a sport. It's a sport over there. It's taken very seriously for the most part, but depending on where you are, obviously. But basically, that's how it all started up. Because I'd been watching since I started. Because Prince David was my inspiration.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's my connection to it, I would say.
So if you compare, you've talked a little bit about the dedication training every day, the wrestling style of wrestling in Japan compared to Europe.
Mm. More. Mm.
Hmm.
It's not me, I promise.
Yeah. No problem. No problem. Let's uh, let's just move on from the Japanese thing, culture, wrestling style, to you being the big Japan Pro Wrestling champion, and give us an insight to the feeling when you reach a
Ah,
little bit about your cure, as you were telling early on.
well, that's the thing. When I won it, I didn't feel anything. I felt like, look, this is Korakuen Hall, semi-main event, in front of like hundreds of people, right? But I felt nothing when I won it. In a way, it felt like he got off easy, because I was ready to bleed. I was gonna go. I wanted to go to war, right? Because this is like a big moment. This is such a big build up from my journey to come to this point in life, right? So I wanted to go all in, but all it took was one bloody Sunday and it was over. But like when I had the title, I didn't feel anything. I remember looking down on it and I was like, am I supposed to feel anything at all? If it was kind of like, I don't know, I just it felt familiar because I had visualized so much, and to the point where I was like, all right, so this okay, it felt exactly how I imagined, but like it was one of those, so hard to explain. But I remember I kissed the title and I was like, well, that's it. I'm the champion, I guess. It was not much of it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was not much of a big accomplishment. It didn't feel like a big accomplishment in a way. It's so strange. But I think that's also how I know that okay, I'm far from finished. That's not my
Ah,
cure. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
exactly.
that's how I felt. Like okay, I felt like I still have a lot of things to do. So like respect to them, obviously, but when I won it, yeah, I didn't feel a lot, honestly.
Mm.
Um, but I needed it. But it was a familiar feeling, definitely.
So now you've tasted a little bit of being a champion in Japan, but as I can understand into your way of looking at wrestling and looking for that special cure,
Mhm.
or what you can call it, what will be the next steps for Endakara in Japan?
In Japan,
Yeah.
definitely, truly feel like I'm in a position in my career and my life where I should have a contract now. And I would say, like in a major company, I want a contract and I want to take that company to the next level, to places they don't even know exist, right? So I think that would be my goal. But obviously, like I was inspired by Prince Devitt. I watched New Japan and Noah for such a long time. I would say those two are definitely priorities, especially New Japan Pro Wrestling, because even when I won the title in Big Japan, uh, you know, I almost saw the title as, or like my entire run in Big Japan, I was like, okay, I'm here, and the idea and the goal here is to establish myself and establish my name in Japan. And that's exactly what I did, and that led to this opportunity and that opportunity, etc. So it's all, again, like I said before, it's all connected. Uh, but that was the purpose of winning that title, and also at the same time elevate Big Japan. Uh, and even when I was a champion, I was looking to get into the best of Super Juniors and represent them in that tournament. But as for current goals, best of the Super Juniors 2025, 100%. Uh, if I'm back in Japan, I don't see how that's going to happen. And from there, obviously, aim for the cure. And the cure in my head is like the biggest, ultimate goal, right? That's how I view it. That's why I call it the cure, because we'll see. I mean, there's directions I can go when I reach it, but we can only find out in time.
Mm.
We just need time.
So can you tell a little bit more about what would be the ultimate cure for Endakara in
Right
Japan?
now, IWGP Junior Champion, because I believe that is the most prestigious junior title in the world today. So the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title, 100%.
Well, of
It's a
course you should.
potential. It's a potential cure. Maybe it's the
Yeah.
GHC Junior Heavyweight Championship. You never know. Maybe it's the All Japan Junior Heavyweight Championship. You never know. We'll have to find out. So
Yeah.
that's how I see it. Right? Those are potential cures. Who knows
Mm.
what happens if I win it?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting, Enda. But now we have talked a little bit about Denmark, Japan, but
Mm,
another country, maybe where you're born, where you're raised, Sweden,
mm.
has some meaning or means something to you in one way or the other. So,
Honestly, man, I don't really have a name over here. Uh,
no,
the Swedish audience don't really know who I am because I've always, considering how small it is, and if we're gonna go into that subject, like the politics,
yeah,
I've always just seen it as waste of energy. So I never really prioritized that scene to begin with because it was at the time when I was moving around, it was in such a bad place. So there was no point in, trying to make change because everyone's just trying to get everyone out of business. But what I was trying to tell them all, and I've said it for years, like years, no joke, that the only thing that ever stopped Swedish wrestling from becoming a big deal and a thing in Sweden have always been the wrestlers themselves. And I've said that for as long as I can remember. And that's why there in my head I was like, all right, like at the time, I was like, there's no point in trying here because they're just trying to run each other out of business. They don't realize how small they are, which I was trying to tell them because at the time I had been traveled for a long time and like I've been like in most European companies and Sweden is nothing, right? Like we're nothing. So why didn't we just, get together, like assemble and build this from scratch together, right? And make it something special. Uh, but I've been preaching about that for years. Right now, today, we're in a better position. We have bright talent over in Stockholm, who are investing time, and not only in the ring but outside of the ring, to trying to get around in the European countries, etc. So there is potential there. I've always said Swedish wrestling is a gold mine. We just need to put the egos aside and build this up together, right? But you know, that's why I never really bothered, because I had made sure I had a place elsewhere. But when I didn't, that was the most probably the most difficult time, and that's why I got out, because I knew it was hopeless at the time.
It sounds like a lot of the same problems that we see in other countries regarding maybe do a lot more working together to elevate the
Yeah.
total scene of pro wrestling in that country.
But this is definitely a normal thing where a promoter will say, "Hey, if you work in this company, you cannot work for me." It's like, look, if I work there, I become a better wrestler and I can further become an asset to your product as well. So I don't see why, you know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
what's the deal? Like, we're all just trying to get better. We're trying to build this up. So why are you even bothering this, telling me something like that? You know what I mean? And this is way back. Someone told me this, right? But like today, like the Swedish scene, the people within it who are in the same position as they were as when I left, etc. Like they can't touch me. You know what I mean? Because the things I've done is undeniable. The position I am in today is undeniable. My resume, my actions, and the way I am as a person speaks for itself. And yeah, that's like if I go to a show, right? I'm not booked. Like purposely, I've declined the booking, but I've still attended the show in order to take notes for wrestlers who want to become, better and level up. I've taken notes on their matches, gone backstage and showed them the notes and given them the feedback in order to become better. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not. This is the first time I ever speak about this, right? Because I don't care about gaining attention for that or someone to give me praise. At the end of the day, I just want everybody to get paid and be well, right? And yeah, that's surprising to hear from the cursed assassin Ender Kara, the ultimate bad guy in Denmark. All of that. But do you know what I mean? It's all
Yeah,
about let's raise the bar, yeah. Because again, it's a gold mine. So I don't see why people bother with these uh, heats or whatever,
exactly.
you
Yeah,
know?
you can call it a lot
Uh,
of things.
yeah.
But I think, Enda, that's actually one thing that's amazing to hear, because you have more or less the same view on wrestling and the wrestling scene in general as I do, because a lot more could happen if you
Mm,
put something aside.
man, you don't like they don't get it, right? It's like it's such a yeah, it's a gold mine.
Yeah,
Uh,
and actually, as you're saying, the Scandinavian scene is a gold mine now, because there's
mm,
so many uncut gems that's just waiting to be
yeah.
refined.
Perfect
Uh,
example. WWE came to Stockholm. The place was full, right? And I'm over there, I'm thinking, hey, they're not at our shows. Why? Right? Like there
yeah,
is so much potential. It's this arena is full of fans who came to see the WWE. So why don't we just try to, build our scene up and have them come to us as well and support the local scene, you know? But hey, this is like a subject from years ago as well. Like at the moment, I wouldn't say this is the case as much as it was before. Like right now, we're actually going upwards. I would say, at least from my perspective, since I've come back, I've seen people hungrier than ever. They've been putting in work and they've gotten in shape, etc. So there's a lot of potential, but it's going to be a slow one, I believe, a slow build up because we're not quite there yet.
not quite there, but and we could talk a lot more about this. But I would like to before we end this interview, I have two last questions. One could say, how would the future look for Enda Kara if we look in 3 years, 5 years?
Oh,
Where will Enda Kara be?
on top of the world. Every single person who ever goes back and like I will be I will be known worldwide, and I know for a fact this is the case, and the world has to fall in order for me to fail, because I'm not gonna stop, right? This is my obsession. This is my life. I've given my life to this business, and I'm not expecting anything back. This is just like I've given my life to this business, and I know for a fact like I'm on to great things. As I speak right now, I am on my way to even greater things. But I know for a fact, like in a couple of years, I'll be on top of the world, no doubt.
Interesting, interesting. And then now the one thing that I always closes interviews with, the mic is yours. You can say anything you would like to say.
Oh, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of ammo, but
Fire
uh,
away.
you know what? I'm gonna say support your local scene. Follow me, follow the wrestlers on social media. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to add. You know, I've been a very good guy this entire interview, so uh, yeah, I would say just make sure you control the controllable, be well, prioritize your health. Yeah, man, this is getting too babyfacey, huh?
Well,
uh,
is this
I
a
am a
baby
nice
face
person, I
turn?
promise. Yeah.
Is this a baby face turn? And
Or is it?
right here,
Or is it just Stockholm syndrome? I don't know. What is it?
people
It's
will need to see you live to find out.
right. Yeah, attend the shows. It's a
Yes.
different world when you're there live. Yeah.
But Enda, now we're talking about you. Where can people see you next in the coming month wrestle?
Since my plans were changed, I'm available worldwide. Because again, this is my life, and I will always prioritize this business first. My career always comes first, no matter what, right? But yeah, definitely keep an eye out in the European scene for now, or the Japanese scene. I always advise people to whoever wants to watch my work, watch my Japanese work, watch my work in Japan when especially when I was a champion in Big Japan Pro Wrestling, competing in the Budokan, etc. But yeah, definitely Japan, Europe, fuck, worldwide, man. Hey, South America, North America, you name it. I'm gonna be everywhere eventually.
Enda, thank you so much for your time. And
Thank you.
you have a very interesting story. And I would like to now already give you an invitation for part two sometimes in
I
a
didn't
few years.
my story.
Yeah. But
So
I
there's a
think we
lot
have a
more.
lot more to talk about going forward, because I think we only scratched the surface a little bit.
Oh yeah,
But
barely.
Enda, as I always closes this interviews off with, is I give this saying to everyone watching, listening out there, go and follow Enda Kara on every social media. He's looking for booking at the moment. So when this interview comes out next week, he's still available. So go and check him out on
Am
Facebook,
I? Hey, take a
Instagram.
chance while you have it. You know, I might not be available, but let's see.
Yeah.
Ready for
But
anything.
yeah. So and some last words from me. Remember, everyone out there, you have to go and watch wrestling live.
100%.